It allows the woman to really be aligned in the creation of her mistress self, and not just this kind of side hustle of like, oh, I'm going to wear latex and buy a whip and learn a few phrases to dominate the sub.
Welcome back to On The Horizon. This is Melrose Michaels. I am your host, and I'm here to share what's worked for me in building my adult creator business to try to make building yours just a little bit easier. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome, everyone. I'm so stoked to have you all here, and even more stoked to discuss the Mistress Mindset, Domme space, and everything else with our guest today, Mistress Malissia, the founder of Mistress Mindset. So Mistress Malissia is a former dominatrix and a mentor of the feminine dominance in life and business for badass women. Malissia, thank you so much for joining and taking the time to hang out with us today.
Hi, Melrose. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. I know it's a little intimidating at first, so I appreciate you being brave.
I think it's good to push my limits.
Oh, absolutely. Said like a former dominatrix. So I wonder if we can maybe start and set the tone and kind of give some background on just what led you to become a dominatrix and ultimately an empowerment coach. This way, the listeners who are less familiar, they can kind of grasp a little bit about your journey.
Okay. Well, I began this journey actually in a kind of unconventional way. I was 19 years old the first time I played with someone that was kinky. I was dating this girl that was a porn star, and one of her clients that was filming her was actually a sub, and some of the videos that he was filming was very amateur videos where he wanted her to be dressed as a girl next door, very casual. And one day she asked me if I wanted to join her. And because I was already used to being, intimate with her, it was my girlfriend. I was like, oh, this could be fun. And the session was only 15 minutes. That was about degrading this guy, spitting on him. And he was fully dressed. There was no sexual activity per se. And I just remember seeing how he was getting hard as I was, playing with him. And in that moment, it just crossed my mind. I'm like, wow, he's really getting pleasure out of this. And we were laughing. And the more we were laughing, the more excited he was becoming. And he was not to be released to come. And after these just 15 minutes, he paid us a lot of money and told us, thank you so much, in a very respectful way, while giving us a bottle of wine. So that was my first impression of playing with BDSM. But at that time, I actually was in a place of my life where I guess I was testing my limits of pain. I was actually in a very self-destructive phase back then. I was 19, and I wanted to try everything, not from a place of empowerment, but from a place of self-destruction. And this led me to enter the sex work industry from a place of being disempowered. And I ended up working for this guy that I answered his ad online. I didn't know what it was for, because at first what he wrote was about being a hostess for boxing matches. And I was like, okay, that sounds fine. I'm going to be dressed. And it was a lot of money. And I thought, okay, let me go and meet with him. And I was very reckless. He met me in front of a metro station, and he was waiting in his car, and I saw his car. And in that moment, that's when your intuition's like, don't get in the car. But I got in the car, and he ultimately explained to me, see, there's a hotel there. So the thing is that your job would be to, see clients, and you would pay me 50% of what you make. And it was really about escorting. So that was me being initiated to the sex work industry, not fully conscious, pretty unconscious, I would say. And I simply accepted, because back then I literally did not care. I just didn't care. And for me, it felt like, I just moved out of my parents' home. That is better than, being paid minimum wage. It's easy money. And I felt independent, and I was using a lot of drugs back then. So I ended up being entangled in the sex trafficking industry, which it was pretty hard to get out of. And that left a very bad impression of the sex work industry, because I got very scared. And the way I got out was pretty incredible. I went to see my grandmother in Bulgaria. I'm originally from Bulgaria, and I was taking care of her when I kind of clicked and realized in that moment, what the fuck am I doing with my life? This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm literally killing myself. And, there was, as I said, drugs involved. We had to drink bottles of vodka before working. The guy was, abusing us, me and the other girls, without condom. There was a lot of things that were non-consensual, and I had no idea about boundaries, about speaking up, about anything. It was simply like, this is the way this works. And when I was in Bulgaria and I realized I was far away from my life, this situation, I decided, okay, I'm going to write him an email and getting out of this. And in that moment, he started threatening me. And I used the art of seduction and manipulation to actually make him feel like it would be in his advantage to not do the things that he was threatening me to do, because he would be risking also going into prison, because I had a lot of personal information from him and we got arrested a few times. And I told him, look, all the girls that work for you are so lucky to have you as their boss. And if it's not you working there, they would be working with people that would be pretty bad. And I want you to keep doing what you're doing. And I also have a lot of leverage. And I just loved working with you so much. And eventually he laid me off for an amount of money. And me telling him that I would come back to him the moment I changed my mind. And from that moment, I was like, I'm never getting back into this industry. So it was only 6 years later when I moved to Melbourne, Australia, with another girlfriend of mine who was Aussie. And in that moment, she was very kinky. We had a pretty kinky relationship where I was more of the dom, and we explored that together. And because I was so far away from everything I knew, from the familiar, from my identity in Montreal, where I was from, I decided to try something new. And someone told me while I was looking for work, it was actually pretty hard to find work on a visa that allows you only to work 6 months with the same employer. They said, why don't you try being a dominatrix? You would be good in that. And I had no idea what that was. And even when I had BDSM sessions with clients as an escort, which was actually not something rare, I attracted a lot of these clients because I always had more of that dominant look and personality. And they were my favorite clients. They were the ones that paid the most and that required the least out of me and were the most respectful. So I researched what Dominatrix was, and I was like, whoa, that's like reading about myself. It's crazy. And I decided to try. And within a few months, I started my practice, which in the beginning was me meeting clients in person to vet them in person. I really wanted to make sure I'm safe. I started giving them instructions before I even knew that this was part of actually the play, just to make sure that I'm safe. I was like, you're going to write me a handwritten letter that you're going to put in an envelope with a deposit, and we're going to meet. And in that letter, I want you to write exactly what your ideal session with me would be. And then when we meet and connect, first of all, that allowed me to see that they're real, they're going to show up, the vibe. And I told them, look, if we don't fit and we don't connect, you can keep the deposit and leave. And the worst that's going to happen is that you will have lost the price of a drink and an hour of your time. And I started seeing clients that way, and they would want to book sessions instantly. And I started making a lot of money very quick. And that's when I started diving into what BDSM is, what female domination is, hiring a mentor. I worked with Anonymous, who was offering the 7 Realms art in Australia back then. And it became like Alice in Wonderland, discovering the rabbit hole. And I would say for 6 years, that was pretty much the only thing I was fully dedicated, obsessed with. I would read about that, take every single mentoring and training that I could see. I would watch all the movies. I would do research on, research papers, do everything. It became as I said, my obsession. And this world just opened up a part of me. And I felt like I reclaimed my power going back into this industry with full consciousness and with rules for myself and without, any consumption. I was fully clean from many years. So I re-entered the industry this time, fully aware of exactly how this is going to go. And I'm working for myself and I'm going to build a business with this and I'm not going to work for anyone. And this is how the journey really began.
That's so beautiful. And I love the fact that you have this story of overcoming that is so difficult and so challenging. And obviously, everyone's story is a bit different, but the fact that you were able to step away and come back with this empowerment aspect and re-enter the industry on your own terms, it's so inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was truly a moment of like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you've done kind of like a lot of traveling and obviously a lot of studying. You incorporate a lot of psychology, a lot of literature, a lot of feminism influence into your career. Can you give some context on like how that came to be?
Yes. So the moment I actually left the sex work industry, the first time when I decided to completely change my life, it was ultimately me being like, okay, if I can go that far into hurting myself, destroying myself, I can go as far into creating myself and rebuilding myself. And that's when I decided to go to university. And not from a place of, oh, what do I want to do with my life later? But really from a place of like, what brings me pleasure? And I wanted to go back to gain discipline and to commit to something that's positive and to really get out of the world, the people and everything that was bringing me back to a world that was destroying me. So I decided to study literature because I've always been fascinated with literature and cinema. And then I started learning about feminism. I had feminism studies and I took psychology classes. I graduated in psychology in college. So it just became what courses interest me, what do I want to take? And I really didn't care about what am I going to do with that, because that in that moment would become not the same intention. And my intention was really like, do something good with your life, get disciplined, get serious, and be surrounded by people who are working on themselves, not who are destroying themselves. And then that influenced a lot of what I bring into my work. BDSM is all about psychology. So it felt very aligned. And I understood instantly exactly what's happening in the human mind through the sessions I was experiencing. And of course, as a femdom, there's a lot of feminism that's activated. And I'm even open to say that when I first entered this industry, after my feminist studies, I was actually very enraged towards men. I had a lot of hate towards men. I was only dating women. I had a lot of anger. And actually, the men that I met through my practice as a Dom are what made me adore men and really respect men and see the power that men have, and that actually men are as hurt as women because of patriarchy, that they're also victims of that. And it became my mission to really destigmatize kink and heal through the experiences that I was sharing.
If you're enjoying this podcast episode so far, please take one moment to share it with another one of your adult content creator friends, because you know what the rule is here. We do not gatekeep, and we want to make as many adult creators' businesses as easy as possible. And you sharing this episode with them might do exactly that. Thanks so much in advance.
There's no, I guess the word would be, because a lot of people look at BDSM or they look at kink and they feel like it's dangerous or it's scary, or, they have this connotation about it. But BDSM and kind of like this Dom sub-dynamic, there's so much healing that can happen in that dynamic. And I feel like a lot of the like mainstream, like civvy kind of society doesn't understand that very well. So to hear like even you like having this new respect for men after these experiences, it makes so much sense to me, because that dynamic in sex work in general, it can be so healing.
Already, if you think about it, if you're just going to a bar to meet someone for one night, it's way more dangerous than having a pre-negotiated, consensual, discussed session, although it might involve more edgy play. But the thing is that BDSM allows us to be more edgy and explore the edges of our being, our limits, because we feel safe doing so, because there is communication, because there's trust. Whereas meeting people without having that trust at first can be so much more damaging, even if it's more, considered vanilla.
Yeah. And just the part about like not being tested, to be out there in real world having sex with strangers is mind boggling to me. Like our industry, our work, the sex work space, like we have such a good grasp on consent and boundaries and limits, and get to play in those lines safely. Whereas like the modern day people on dating apps, that's just, I can't believe people do that. I want to go into something you said too, because when we're talking about like the psychology, the literature, the feminism, like all these skill sets that you went out and you sought out, you didn't do it with the intention of building what came to be, later Mistress Mindset, but you did it just as skills to acquire along the way. And then like the path kind of reveals itself to you after you build those skill sets. I want to touch on that because I think in just business in general, that gets overlooked a bit. It's like, when I set out to do SWCEO as a company, there's so many things that I didn't foresee me doing. Like I knew generally directionally what I wanted to do, but along the way, all the skills you learn, all the little side quests, all the little missions you end up going on, are the shortcomings that become you become self-aware about. Like, oh, I don't know how to do that. How now I have to learn this thing to do that challenge and overcome this level. I think that that's really how business typically works, is that you're directionally correct, but you don't know every step along the path, and then the skills you end up acquiring are what ultimately guide you there. And I feel like that's kind of what you speak to when you were seeking out those educational components and building your skills along the way.
Yeah, I think that in sex work in general, we have a lot of freedom to be creative and to integrate our interests and to forge a business and a persona around who we are, and what we actually desire, what we actually want. And in my case, my interests were, infused into my work. And everyone has different interests, different skills, different strengths, different passions. That's why every single business in this industry will be completely different. And my path, whatever I was learning was because of interest. So that just transferred into my business.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And that's also what keeps a business really sustainable, is when it's really aligned in that way. So it's perfect. When it comes to the term Mistress Mindset, what does that mean to you? And how did you kind of develop this philosophy? Because I think this is so interesting.
Oh, yes. Okay. So when I decided to start mentoring and coaching women, which actually came from a very high demand, and I was not ready to do it because I was comparing myself to most of the people that mentor and offer courses that have over 20 years experience. So I was always, no, I'm not ready. I can't do this. And I had this limiting belief that I couldn't be, in that authority position to share my knowledge and expertise. And then this one woman told me at some point, she's like, but I want to learn from you because of what you build in so little time. I want to learn from you because your brand speaks to me, and other people may have more experience and more time in the industry, but it either feels not aligned with what I like, or outdated, or something that I can't connect with, or it's just simply not what speaks to me. And they've built that in 20 years and you've done it in 6 years and you're very successful. And I want to learn from you because of that. And that clicked in my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm limiting myself. People want this. So I was like, okay, I will just do one course just to see how that goes. Let me just launch one course that would be about what people are asking, which was female domination. So the first little course I launched was just Femdom and BDSM 101, something that I'm like, okay, I can definitely teach beginners. And that blew up like wildfire. And then there was this woman in Amsterdam. She's like, can you come teach this in the Netherlands in person? And then I was like, oh my God, yeah. And then I did that workshop in person, which kind of started being, me offering courses and classes, but without being like, okay, I'm going to be a coach or a mentor. And it's really when I got pregnant that I started asking myself, do I want to stay into this industry? How do I want my future to unfold? What do I want? In that moment, there's a huge identity shift that happens. And I started questioning myself what I want to do next. And I decided to leave the industry as a provider, but to become this mom dom. And I founded the Dominatrix Academy because I had my own dungeon in Montreal. I had the space, and there was so many women that were writing to me from Montreal all the time about coaching, mentoring, but training to become DOMs. And I launched the Dominatrix Academy in person, and there was so much demand. I ended up doing it in parallel online while I was 5-6 months pregnant. I did it in person online. It was actually pretty funny being with the huge belly and showing women how to whip. And it was really exciting. And then I knew that these women would need a lot of equipment for their own dungeon. And I was planning to leave Montreal. I didn't want to raise my child in Canada. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to just sell everything I own. Same thing I did back when I moved to Australia. I'm going to leave Canada. I'm going to sell everything, and all the DOMs can buy my stuff because it was all custom made. And it's not the kind of thing you can just go into a shop and be like, oh, I'm going to buy a spanking bench. It's all things you have to make. And mine were also pretty beautiful. So people were like, I want that one. And I was like, okay, let me teach and then sell everything. And then as I gave birth, that's when I redid it another time, and second round, and it was epic. And I decided to create an actual business for mentoring and coaching that I called Mistress Mindset, because to me, the mistress is an extension of who we are. That's how I always saw it. I'm like, it's not a role we play. It's an extension of who we are. And if we decide we want to be DOMs, and it's really working with women that want to do this work, or women that I've worked with as DOMs, I'm like, I see the difference between someone who's genuinely confident, believing in herself, knows her value, and someone who's just performing dominance or being a service top. And a lot of people enter this world not having that inner confidence, and having a lot of imposter syndrome, and having doubts about their power. And I saw that firsthand with so many women who would perform dominance, and it would be like theatrical. But then when it's over, you can't play the role and on top of a story of I'm not good enough. It will never feel genuine. And to me, it was like, I want to teach women how to embody their inner mistress and to truly step into that version of themselves, which I know every woman can access. It's our innate divine feminine power, and not just teaching them how to play in a session, play with subs, and do impact play, but really the mindset behind that. Who's the woman behind the persona? And I had this program, Divine Dom Awakening, my first long program. And it was the Divine Dom is ultimately the woman behind the persona, the actual inner mistress. And I love focusing on this because when a woman embraces that side of herself and embodies her divine Dom and develops her mistress mindset, then she doesn't need any tools, any clothes, any equipment. She needs nothing but herself to dominate, because she's dominating her life. And that's what mistress mindset is about.
I love that so much. I recently went on a trip with a friend, and we were talking about stepping into your feminine energy. And I think, like, to your point, each woman has this like innately feminine and like seductive, sexual, and also very powerful like aspect of just being a woman. Or I think that you have to own it and step into it. Otherwise, you're almost like taking away your own shine, I guess is the best way I can describe it. But we had spoken about that like feminine energy, and that's what I think of when you describe the mistress mindset. And it's absolutely something that you can step into, and it involves nothing but your essence, like your aura, who you are and what you exude. And it's so magical and special.
Yes, and what you exude is what you attract. So yeah. I see how sometimes the type of subs or clients that women DOMs attract are just a reflection of who they are. And that's why, to me, it's so important to build them from the ground up and not on top of all the layers of limiting beliefs.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I love that you said that. Can you discuss and kind of describe the types of courses and programs you offer through Mistress Mindset?
Well, the main one is Divine Dom Awakening. It's the first long program that I built, that I wanted to create something for women to experience their power, to really be put in situations through Dom work that I give them. So there's the theory, we have the classes. It's a 3-month program and they really get to be to see themselves in another light, and to go into the world and put into practice a lot of the tools and skills and knowledge and wisdom I have acquired as a Dom, but to develop that side of themselves and to see, wow, I am her. It's not a role that I play. And sometimes through role play, we get to experience this side of ourselves that, we give permission to that side to come out. But embodying it is really what Divine Dom Awakening is about. And that's a program I launch once a year, and that I want to lead. Now I want to create it into something that will be also in person. And apart from that, there's the Dominatrix Academy, which is my signature program for pro-doms. Any woman who wants to become a pro-dom, there's pretty much anything you need in that program to build your brand, your persona, your mindset, your business, and your relationship with subs, long-lasting relationship, high-quality clients, and how to, set the scene, kinks, fetishes, the psychology, the art, the business of female domination. So that's all about pro-domination. So I wouldn't necessarily encourage women who are lifestyle doms to join, because there's a lot of the business aspect of it and having your own practice. But for any woman who would like to explore this world professionally, to me, it's built from a place of feminine empowerment, but also I come from having experienced not running, but actually working for someone and not running my business in the sex work industry. And I know how it can be disempowering and how easily we can be manipulated or influenced to take a lot of money without, to do things we don't like for the money. And I see that still from women that are now, established doms, and that still tell me, yeah, I actually did that and he offered me so much and I regret it. So to me, I really want to create a place, a training that encompasses everything that this woman experiences, not just in her sessions, but who is she becoming in the world when she becomes a dom, because there is an identity shift that happens. It's inevitable to embrace this side and for it not to be performative. So it will influence a lot of areas in our life, sometimes our relationships. And there is going to be, the next edition is actually starting in September, and I'm incorporating this time also somatic work to really integrate this side of ourselves into who we are, and for not just to be something that you learn with the mindset of like, oh, how to best please the sub, how to create a session so my sub loves it. And a lot of women are kind of conditioned to always put male's pleasure first, but in female domination, we want to put our pleasure first. So it's a really pleasure. It's all about pleasure, profit, and purpose for me.
I love that. I love that. And when you talk about incorporating the somatic side, can you speak to that kind of like therapy or therapeutic, how it impacts people? Because I think that this is really important for women specifically to hear. So I'd love if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't want to reveal too much. I have an info session coming on the 28th where I'm going to talk about Dominatrix Academy in depth and about that. Now I'm already revealing more than I have on my social media, but it comes from how your body responds to all the changes and how your nervous system is adapting to to receiving a lot. And in the world of female domination, there's a lot of worship happening, goddess worship. And worship to me is the art of receiving. But a lot of women have a very hard time receiving. So they might, be unable to hold or receive what is given to them, and to, how can I say that? Like their body can't hold that much. And whether that's compliments or gifts, tributes, money, they kind of hit a glass ceiling, an invisible glass ceiling. And when we adapt our body, when our mindset, our body physically, somatically is in sync with our mission and our desire to create a business, and everything is aligned, it allows the woman to really be aligned in the creation of her mistress self, and not just this kind of side hustle of like, oh, I'm going to wear latex and buy a whip and learn a few phrases to dominate a sub. It's going to become something so real and so empowering. And when I say empowering, I mean like within herself, she will feel that flame being lit, and it will not be a performance. It will be so natural because it's her. She will see herself like that, and her whole being will be embodied in her practice as a dominatrix. And to me, the dominatrix is this extension of us, the one that we give permission to ask for what she wants, to own what she wants unapologetically, to pursue her desires. And that is something women have a very hard time in their everyday life to do. So then when they enter this world, it's like already when you start your work into this industry, it's like having a startup. So you already are doomed to fail because very few people understand business. But then when you start business, then there's so much things to put into place, but it's also who are you becoming through that? It's not just what you do. It's not just how you do it. It's who you are when you do it. And that's what I want to focus on in this round of the Dominatrix Academy. So these are the two main programs. And apart from that, I have programs more related to business. I have Mistress Business Class, Dom Boss. I have the Mistress Closet, which is all about fetish fashion. And I have Seduction Mastery, which is pretty much self-explanatory.
I love that so much. So something that we keep circling back to is like how embracing this mindset also transforms your life. Can you, I guess, give some context to what that looks like in the real world for people that come in, take your courses, go through the academy, really embody this experience and this lifestyle? How does that transform beyond the career, beyond, the business aspect?
Yes. So just to give you a few examples, I never speak from a place of you're going to make more money, your relationships are going to be better. But from what I noticed, this becomes a byproduct of working with me. But I never speak from that standpoint because to me, it's really about you being empowered. Then if that helps you have better relationships, if that helps you make more money, that's just a bonus. And now what I have noticed is, yes, women that come into my programs and they already know there will be a shift, especially if they are already in my community, they already are part of my world. They prepare for like, okay, I'm ready for this. And I want women who are ready because the things I do are not a surface level. So when we work together, it will shift the habits. It will shift the behavior. It will somewhat shift how you perceive yourself. You will see yourself like the goddess you are, but you will also see yourself like the boss you are. And to me, the Dom is at the intersection of the goddess and the boss, the one that can give commands, take action, lead, but also the one that can receive pleasure, be worshipped, just stand there and be appreciated for the divine being she is. And the Dom is there. So embodying both of these sides of herself inevitably will have influence over how we walk, over how we talk, how we assert our boundaries, how we don't just, ask for, can I please have another piece of cake? It's like, yeah, I will have another piece of cake and a muffin and a brioche and this and that. It's like, I want it all. And I know I can have it all. And I know I can pay for it all. I don't need you to pay for me. It's like, let's have it all. And that is something that in the beginning, it's not something I notice a lot of people naturally have. I feel like it's something that develops, and everything I create leads to that. And there was someone, for example, this woman that came into a program of mine, and that was after she took Seduction Mastery. So she already had done one of the smaller classes, 5 days, and then she came into this bigger challenge I made, and she was like, well, the thing is, I told my boyfriend I'm going to join a Shift, which it was called Shift back then. And she's like, yeah, I told my boyfriend I'm going to join Shift, and he told me, yeah, I feel like if you do that, you will leave me. And I was like, okay. And she's like, yeah, I've been with him for 14 years and I'm so unhappy and he knows it. And I keep telling him that, sexually I'm completely depleted. There was so many layers of that. And I never told her to leave her partner. They've been together 14 years. And who am I to say anything about her relationship? But she told me, yeah, my partner told me that he warned me that if I take your course, that I would leave him. And I'm like, look, if you want to leave him, that would be your full responsibility and ownership because of what you will have created. So that's fully on you. And, to me, a mistress has to be fully self-responsible, take full radical self-ownership. And that to me is being a leader. So I told her, look, just focus on yourself, and whatever comes out of it, comes out of it. And I knew in that moment, if she leaves her partner, it would be a success, because she's talked to me since the first program about him and how limited she is, because he doesn't even allow her to pursue her interests. He doesn't allow her to bloom. And there was so many things that I'm like, okay, if she leaves her partner, this is a success. And she ended up leaving him. And then she ended up asking him, look, you're actually the one that's going to leave the place. I'm keeping the apartment, and I'm keeping that one thing that they had in common. I forgot what it was. And she actually went shopping, and she bought clothes and lingerie that he didn't allow her to wear. And there was so many things like that. And this woman now is like, I can't recognize her, but I feel like now I meet who she is. I'm like, okay, now I see you. Now you are who you are. Until then, your light was so dimmed that, of course, the thing is, I want women's light to shine as bright as possible. But a lot of women are scared to have their light shine, because light attracts attention, and we're scared of that attention because it can feel unsafe. So we dim our light to take less space, to be smaller, to be quiet, to not risk anything. But in that moment, we actually dim our power as well. And the thing is, if you shine really bright, you can blind people, and people don't want that. So that's why we stay small and dimmed. And in my mind, it's like, look, tell people to put sunglasses on. Like, you're going to shine as bright as you can, and always more. So this is why these programs are built to ultimately bring out the light. And it's so funny, because it comes from like, oh, I work in the dark, I work in BDSM. Oh, it's so extreme. But to me, BDSM is all about light work. It's just that so much happens in the dark, which is where we're vulnerable, where we're intimate with ourselves. And a lot of what happens in our intimacy translates into our real life. And this is an example, just one woman, and there's endless examples I can give you of transformations. But to me, embracing the mistress mindset is learning who the fuck you are, owning who the fuck you are, and being that unapologetically, and to be like, okay, how much more of me can I be? Instead of, oh, if I do this, if I say that, what would people say? What would people do? It's like, who are people? Why? Like, who are these people? The people that don't like who you are, not your people. And it all becomes kind of this ripple effect. It becomes a ripple effect. And that's also why I love working with women, because with men, I felt like a lot of what happens behind closed doors changes them, transforms them, makes them, ultimately empowered, because their needs and desires are valued and welcomed and expressed. But then they go back to their reality, and they still have shame or guilt. Sometimes they're not going to change the world with that, because they're not going to talk about it. But women talk about it. Women speak up about it. A woman who steps into her power influences other women to do the same. And sometimes people tell me, look, just being around you, listening to you gives me, just being with you allows me to be myself without you even doing anything. And we don't have enough people around us that give us permission to do that. So I believe that it's inevitable that when a woman steps into her power, it will change her life on all levels.
No, that's a guarantee. And it's really interesting to hear that you've witnessed and gotten to be a part of so many of these transformations, because the way I relate to that in that way is like, so many people that I've spoken to and had interactions with, I find are actually afraid of success. And it's also almost to the same extent, like, you're afraid to step in your power. You're afraid to have that attention or that spotlight or that magnifying glass on you. You're afraid of what people will think of you. And it all translates into actually a self-fulfilling prophecy and kind of self-sabotage, because you're afraid to step in to that power and demand that attention, or demand what you're worth, or set the value for yourself. So I think there's so much crossover, to your point, with business and domination.
Absolutely. Yes. That's why I love talking about business when it comes to domination. And I have a lot of women that are my clients that are CEOs and that work with me, not even for domination, but for all exactly what you said, how to embody this side and to reach for that raise, to go to speak up to their boss about something that was wrong. And these sides of ourselves are they are screaming to get out. And yes, women are scared of success, are scared of failure. There is a lot of fears, but it's all about being brave and courageous. That's what gives you the confidence. And until you go for the thing that you actually want, you will always you're ultimately already failing yourself.
Absolutely. That's such a beautiful place. I feel like to tie this up in the most perfect black leather bow. I love this. Thank you so much. There's so many DOMs in our community and that are listening in. I can see so many people just from CEO Society alone. I see Mistress Quinn. I saw Emmy in here. I see all the goddesses, so many listeners. Can you plug your socials, your website, everything that our community can seek out to find you?
Okay, yes. On Instagram, I'm mistress.mindset. Pretty easy. Mistress.mindset. And on X, I'm Miss Malissia. Malissia is with double S. And my website is mistressmindset.com. And if you want to learn about Dominatrix Academy, it's just dominatrixacademy.com. And I have a space for DOMs. It's a membership where I come up live every week to offer trainings, 1-hour trainings. We have Q&As. We have workshops on money, on mindset, on leadership, but also on kink and fetish, and how to create a next level scene, which is actually in 10 minutes. I have that class coming up, how to create a next level scene, how to communicate with subs. So this is really it's going to be the biggest network for DOMs that right now I'm creating, and it's $111 a month. And this allows me to show up in one place and reach as many people as possible instead of offering one-on-ones, which was pretty much what I've been doing so far, a lot of one-on-ones. And I felt like my energy was very spread and that I could serve more people by being in one place and speaking. So Dom Space is pretty much the place you want to be in if you're a Dom. And you can find out about it on my site, mistressmindset.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Malissia, for joining us today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure to speak with you.
I'm so excited. So as many of you have seen, we've started putting out new content over on our YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. You can do so at youtube.com/SWCEO. And make sure your notifications are on so that you never miss a new course of law. We've been doing tons of stuff over there. Recently, I was opening up around a surgery and trying to shoot and kind of like run the business behind the scenes after having a procedure. That video is live on our channel, and you can watch it by clicking the link in the pinned tweet at the top of this space. As always, wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone who is subscribed to our Telegram bot. Already, if you haven't heard, we did release a Telegram bot that essentially sends you your daily adult content inspiration and all the captions you need for your feed, PPV, left messages, clip stories, etc. You can sign up for the bot on our socials, on our website. It basically gives you your daily dose of content inspiration to your phone every morning around 10 a.m. Central, so that you no longer have to waste your time researching, planning, or coming up with content ideas or captions. The bot takes care of all of it. And if you're not a Telegram user, but you would still like the PDF downloadable version of that content inspo and caption from the bot, you can do that now over on SWCEO.com/shop. We launched a store website with PDF downloads of the same content, inspo, and captions that we use on the Telegram bot, but now you have it in download PDF versions as well. There's also other things over there, unlock sales scripts, sales objection scripts, and there's free downloads there too, so you can get in on the action without spending a dime. If you want to take advantage of any of that, there are some freebies waiting for you on our website. Now, I want to take this last opportunity to draw attention about my other company, SWR Data, in case you're not familiar. We are on a mission to survey adult creators and performers like you, and we want to hear your feedback and all about the challenges that you face in the adult industry so that we can better serve your needs. Our goal is just to collect your experiences, your opinions, your observations about the current state of the adult industry, and then we'll use that data to advocate for necessary changes to make it a better place for us, the creators. The reality is that a lot of the people in power have never been creators and simply do not have a lens to know what our needs are. So SWR Data is us trying to have that lens and provide it back. However, I can't do it alone. I genuinely need your help. So for that reason, we're inviting any creator who's willing to participate in our qualifying survey, which helps us understand your expertise as an adult creator. And then by taking the survey, you can start participating in future paid surveys with our ultimate aim for the CEO squad to have an additional income stream through surveys alone. Our experience as creators is super valuable, and we think it's time you got paid for it. So this is a collective effort. If you're interested in participating in future surveys, please let us know you're interested, and we will get you the link to the qualifying survey so you can join us in this mission. Now, I want to bring up, it looks like we have some questions. They're wondering if you have info or advice on online domination, or if your info is strictly for in-person work.
No, actually, I teach a lot of virtual domination, and I believe that virtual domination is one of the things that really kicked off my business to multiple six figures during the pandemic. I think nowadays you absolutely want to also have that as an option. Even if you want to do in person, I think it limits us nowadays to just do in person. So I'm all about virtual domination, but it is a very different framework to work on virtual domination. And when I say virtual domination, personally, it's not about, it's online sessions. I'm not talking about clips. That's completely different when you're selling clips or filming clips. But virtual domination is about creating a scene, a session, an experience through the camera with the person you're speaking to. So you're not going to need the same equipment as in person. You're going to need more like high-speed internet, a good camera, proper audio, things like that. But it all revolves around how can you make the experience the best. And I have a class specifically on virtual domination as part of the Dominatrix Academy. This is really something that more and more creators are looking into, because you can work from anywhere around the world. There's no more borders to who you can reach. And I think that people who don't even want to try virtual domination are missing out on a big, part of their income. So I could speak about that for hours, but it's definitely something that involves similar things in the beginning, how to lead up the person into the experience until the moment you meet, all the instructions you're going to send them. But then it's not so much about what you're going to do to them, but what you're going to ask of them to do. The clear instructions and tasks while you look at them, they are the ones that are going to be doing the things for you. Whereas in person, you're going to be more you doing things on them. So that already shifts the perspective. But there's also an opportunity that when you are on camera, there's a lot of effects you can create, a lot of ways that can blur that space between you and the other person, even if there is a camera. So you can create, with the lighting, with the music, a lot of things. You can instruct them to play something in the background while you play. You can, you want to make sure that you can see all of them, and you can ask them to buy tools and toys that they would use during the session. And it doesn't even need to be the same types of tools and toys that you would use in person session. Of course, they can't buy a whip and whip themselves, but they can stand, do the chair, and get uncomfortable, and you watch them and you can either laugh or make them repeat something in the meantime. And, you just have to get creative, but in a different way that you would do it in person.
I love this. Is so informational. And for the member that requested that question, they're in our CEO Society community, so I'm sure they'll be seeing more of you along the way as well. So this is excellent. All right, so I want to bring us to kind of the end of today's Twitter space. I know you have a hard stop at the hour. So huge thank you just to everyone who joined today, from Malissia for being here. Anyone who's listening, just know that these are also turned into blog posts over on our website on SWCEO. So if you want to revisit anything we talked about, you can do so about a week or so after today's episode. So thank you guys all for joining me. Thank you, Malissia, for being here. Thank you, everyone. And I hope you guys have a fantastic Tuesday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It would be absolutely incredible if you rated this podcast 5 stars and left a little review. We want to get this podcast to as many adult creators as possible, and you taking a second to leave a couple stars and a review really helps us do that. Thanks so much.